The world was merely chaos, darkness, fire, and stone. In that formless abyss, where neither death nor life had meaning, the first gods emerged. And among their oldest and most forgotten descendants, the Cyclopes were born. Their story does not begin among men, but in the primordial realms of the sky and the abyss. From the union of Uranus, the sky, and Gaia, the earth, sprang beings of immeasurable power. Some were beautiful like the Titans, others terrible and deformed, conceived by the excess of the power of creation itself. Among the latter were the Cyclops, the one-eyed ones, the forgers of lightning and thunder. The ancients called them Arges the brilliant, Brontes the thunderer, and Steropes the thunderous. They were not monsters, though their appearance struck fear even among the gods. They were colossal, with bodies carved from living stone, and a single burning eye in the center of their faces, a symbol of their perfect vision, the gaze that pierces matter and beholds the essence of fire. Their eye was not a defect. It was a gift. The primordial fire dwelt within them, the divine spark that would later illuminate the universe. During the early ages, the Cyclopes were the blacksmiths of the cosmos. In the depths of Tartarus, before Olympus and mankind existed, they molded the dormant metals of the abyss. With each blow of their hammers, the world trembled. They forged mountains, opened the craters of volcanoes, and in their art was born the first sound of thunder. They said their very breath was fire, and that in their throats rumbled the wrath of the universe. But the Cyclopes were also feared. Uranus, the sky, looked upon them with horror. In his celestial perfection, he could not bear to see the cruelty and brute strength of these children of his. He considered them deformed, dangerous, impure, and in his fear, he chained them in the womb of the earth, burying them in the bowels of Gaia, where fire and stone fuse eternally. It was there, in the fiery caverns of Tartarus, that the Cyclopes learned to speak with fire. Their hammers became thunder, their tears rivers of lava. And Gaia, their mother, wept for them, because she knew that in those disowned children lived the energy that would one day free the world. Eons passed. The Titans ruled the cosmos. Cronus, the son of Gaia and Uranus, dethroned his father, but he did not free the Cyclopes. He kept them chained, for he feared their power. In the shadows of the underworld, the three Cyclopean brothers waited, their single eye burning silently, like an ember that never dies, until Zeus, son of Cronus, arrived. The young god, still without a throne, sought out the Cyclopes, for he knew that within them dwelt the fire he needed to defeat the tyrant of time. He found them in the depths of Tartarus, among molten mountains and chains that shone with the heat of hell. He freed them, breaking their bonds with his own divine strength. It was then that the Cyclopes knelt before Zeus and offered him their gift. Argus, Brontes, and Steropes forged for him the thunderbolt, the most feared weapon in the cosmos. The fire that slumbers in the heart of storms was born in their forges. And with that fire, Zeus challenged Cronus. The war of the Titans, the Titanomachy, began with the crash of a Cyclopean hammer. The mountains were shattered, the skies burned, and the seas rose like walls. In that war, the Cyclopes fought alongside the Olympian gods. Every lightning bolt hurled by Zeus was a spark from his forge. Every crash of thunder, an echo of his cry. When the Titans fell, the Cyclopes were honored as allies and sacred craftsmen. They were given a place deep within Mount Etna, where their forges would burn for centuries to come. Yet fire never rests. The gods forget, But fire remembers. In the centuries that followed, the Cyclops continued their silent labors, forging the thunderbolts of Zeus, the weapons of Ares, the golden necklaces of Aphrodite. They were the hidden architects of divine power, those who shaped the impossible. But their story wouldn't end there. Because in the echo of their hammers and in the darkness of their caves, something changed. From the divine race of the first Cyclopes, others would be born. Less pure, more savage. A second generation of one-eyed giants. No longer children of the sky, but of the earth itself. The Cyclopes of Homer. Solitary shepherds who inhabited the coasts of Sicily, enormous, rude, and without gods to guide them. And among them, one would stand out for his brutality and his tragic destiny. Polyphemus, the son of Poseidon. But that is another story. For what follows is the descent of the Cyclops from divine fire to mortal flesh. The fall of the sacred blacksmiths into oblivion. The echo of a lineage that was once divine and ended up as legend. And so, in the crackling of the fire, the Cyclops wait to be remembered. For their eye still shines in volcanoes, in storms, and in every spark that ignites the hearts of men. Time turned to dust. The wars of the gods were left behind, and the divine fire that once burned in the heart of the world slowly faded, like an ember consumed among the rocks of oblivion. The ancient Cyclops, Arges, Brontes, and Steropes, disappeared, melted into the eternity of the volcanoes. But their lineage somehow survived. They were no longer gods or thundersmiths. They were wandering giants, beings of flesh and blood, deformed descendants of a greatness that no one remembered anymore. They inhabited the wild lands of Sicily, where the cliffs rise like the teeth of the world, and the sea beats furiously against the stones. There, under the shadow of Etna, the heart of the Cyclopean fire still burned, and the mountains sighed with the echo of their ancient songs. Among these giants was born Polyphemus, son of the sea god Poseidon and the nymph Theusa. His name meant he of many voices, although his was a solitary voice. He lived among flocks of sheep, in deep caves where the sun barely reached. His single eye, round and bright, connected him to a past he did not understand, but which followed him like a shadow. It was an eye of ancient fire, although extinguished by ignorance. Polyphemus was enormous, strong as a mountain, but without wisdom. The divine spark of his ancestors burned faintly within him, like a memory in a dream. Man had already been born on earth, and the gods had abandoned their works. Fire, which had once been knowledge, had become fear, and the Cyclopes became symbols of brutality, of blindness, of isolation. They say that Polyphemus loved the sea because he heard his father's voice in it. He would spend hours gazing at the horizon, thinking he heard Poseidon's thunder in the waves. On his lonely nights, the wind that came down from Etna brought him ancient whispers, as if the mountains still remembered the blows of sacred hammers. But he didn't understand those voices. He was an heir without memory, a guardian of a fire he no longer knew how to light. And it was during those days of isolation that fate, always capricious, brought him across the wake of a mortal man, Odysseus. The cunning navigator from Ithaca, lost on his long return from Troy, reached the shores where Polyphemus was grazing. The encounter between the two would be more than a story of men and monsters. It would be the clash between the ancient world of myth and the new realm of reason and cunning. Odysseus, guided by curiosity or by fate, entered the Cyclops' cave with his companions. There, among goatskins and jugs of milk, they found plenty. But the giant soon returned. The ground shook beneath their steps, the air became dense, and the single eye shone in the darkness like a burning moon. The man and the Titan looked at each other for the first time, and in that instant, two worlds clashed, that of primal force and that of human intelligence. Polyphemus, in his wild innocence, asked who they were. Odysseus answered with measured words, knowing that this being had the power to crush them like insects. But hospitality did not exist in the giant's domain. Polyphemus did not fear the gods, for he had been born in a time when the gods no longer intervened. He offered neither bread nor words, but death. He took two men in his enormous hands and devoured them, while their blood mixed with milk on the stone floor. For nights on end, horror reigned in the cave. The fire burned dimly, and in Polyphemus's eye shone the radiance of the ancient race of the Cyclopes. But Odysseus was weaving a plan. He knew that against brute force, the mind must be the weapon. The hero offered the giant wine, sweet wine brought from Ismarus, and when Polyphemus, drunk, asked him his name, Odysseus answered cunningly, "My name is Nobody." The giant laughed, a laugh that made the stones rattle. And when he fell asleep, the men took a red-hot log, sharpened it, and with all the weight of their despair, drove it into the Cyclops' eye. Polyphemus's cry was a cosmic roar. Mount Etna trembled. The sheep fled. The ancient fire reawakened in his wounded eye, not as a creative flame, but as fury. The other Cyclopes came down from the mountains, shouting, "Who hurt you, brother?" And Polyphemus, between pain and blindness, cried out, "No one! No one did this to me." And so the echo of his own word condemned him. The gods remained silent. The fire of the Cyclops was extinguished forever that night. Odysseus escaped hidden under the belly of the sheep, leaving behind the blind giant who pounded the walls and cursed the name of Nobody. When Polyphemus called upon his father, Poseidon, the sea rose in storms, and the hero was haunted by his wrath for years. But in essence, that episode marked the end of an era. The Cyclopes, children of divine fire, had been defeated by the intelligence of man. The single eye, symbol of absolute vision, was extinguished by cunning, deceit, and words. The fire shattered into 1,000 sparks, each of which was given to humanity. Thus was born man's dominion over nature. Stolen fire, reason, the multiple gaze. However, the myth did not die. The spirit of the Cyclops lived on in the volcanoes, in the thunder, in the forges of the artisans who molded iron. For even if the gods forgot them, every spark that man ignites is an echo of the eye that once saw all. The ancients say that on the nights when Etna trembles and the lava flows like a river of blood, the Cyclopes still work in their invisible forges, that their hammers resonate beneath the earth, and that their fire keeps the heart of the world warm. Perhaps they are not monsters, but sleeping guardians, workers of the eternal fire. And if ever, looking at the clouds, you think you see a solitary figure with an eye of light in the sky, it is no illusion. It is the memory of the first fire, the witness of the gods, the last Cyclops, silently observing how men, the new heirs of fire, forge their own destiny. Because the Cyclops didn't die. They simply closed their eyes to dream.